What's going on YouTube? Ace Poker back for another video, and you see behind me I got the green screen. We are all in for $1,000 3 ways in our very first hand. We sit down. Without further ado, let's get right into today's video. 2-5 at Borgata, let's go. Alright, let's rewind and figure out how the fuck I got into a 3-way all-in my very first hand. So I looked down at Queen Jack offsuit in the small blind, and I was just sitting down and getting my camera ready, so I was actually going to fold my hand but decided, what the hell, I'm in the small blind, I'll just put in the limp and see what happens, and both other players checked, and boom, we flopped the stone cold nuts. Yeah, that's right, pretty good way to start the day. I check, and now the big blind actually decides to bet out for $15, and the other limper decides to make the call. I could raise, but I don't want to blow anybody off. There's not even a flush draw out there, so I just make the call, and we see a great turn. The ace of clubs, which could bring in a flush draw and could allow me to raise now, so I check, and now the big blind does not disappoint, as now he bets $60, but the action gets even better, as now the limper decides to raise to $180. What is going on? I definitely don't want to go crazy and blow them off the hand now, so I just flat call the $180, and now it's back on the big blind, who goes all in for $1,000, but that's not even where it begins. Now the other player calls the $1,000. What is going on? Obviously, I snap call and I showed them the bad news right away, and I figure maybe I'm up against 2-pair, maybe I'm up against a flush draw, but even better, I am absolutely free rolling. The big blind flopped the low end of the straight while the other player just has ace jack, so I only have to fade a queen to just chop. Like, the worst case scenario is I chop. This is incredibly insane. This is literally every poker player's dream. This is just the dream scenario that everyone wishes to get into. The limper actually had slightly more, and he turns and asks me, do you want to run it twice? You shouldn't be able to 3 times, and I always say I'm just going once from now on, but I'm just so happy at this situation that I say, sure, we can go twice.
1 or 2?
It's really up to you. I don't care. We could go twice if you want, buddy. It doesn't matter.
I'm fucking dead.
Two attempts?
Sure. I'll be nice today. There's my good karma for the week for you guys. So off to 2 boards we go. The first one comes clean, so boom, we lock up 50% of the pot. Now we only have to fade 3 queens. Please dealer, 1 time. Please dealer, please. I was being nice, please. Don't F me. And oh my goodness, the queen. You know, it always happens. It always comes. You just, can never just fully get that full good situation, but we lock up 75% of the pot, win about $1,200. It should have been $2,000. I'm not complaining. A great first hand. Don't go anywhere because the rest of the session is just as fun, and let's go. So, yeah, pretty good start to the day. We get a $1,000 chip in our very first hand. Let's continue to run it up. We are right back at it with Queen Jack, this time suited, trying to reignite the magic from the first hand. There's an early position open to 15, a 3-bet to 60. I decide to flat call the 60. The player to my left also flat calls the 60, and now the initial raiser calls the 60 as well. So we're going 3 ways to a flop in which we flop top pair. Pretty good, but when action checks to me, I think that the initial raiser could be slow playing a lot of things, so I decided to check back here. We see a pretty good turn. The early position player now decides to check, and the player who 3-bets now puts out a bet of $200. Yeah, pretty weird spot here sitting with top pair. A decent kicker. We're losing to ace queen, king queen, aces, kings, yada yada. You guys know the deal. I just think it's a super weird spot, and with players behind me, I decided to actually make a pretty tight fold here with top pair, and pretty instantly the player to my left calls the $200 and the early position player gets out of the way. I left the camera rolling because I felt like it was going to be an interesting hand, but the river goes check check, and the player who 3-bets had ace queen. So pretty interesting development here, and our pretty tight-ish fold on the turn works out for us here. Sometimes it pays off to just make a good fold. For this next hand here, we look down at the beautiful pocket queens. We raise it up to $20 over and under the gun limp. We are +1, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 callers of $20. So we're going 6 ways with pocket queens. Not what you want to see at all. So yeah, we're looking for an above average flop, and that's exactly what we get as we flop top set on a beautiful board with 2 hearts out there. When 2 players check and it's on me, I decide to down bet here to just $35. I'm figuring, maybe I'll pick up 1 or 2 callers, but when it goes around the table and 3 players call, it's pretty interesting, and it's a bit weird to figure out what everyone has because we obviously have top pair locked up. So I'm thinking maybe 1, maybe 2 flush draws and a straight draw, praying to just not see a heart. Actually, just praying to pair the board so this hand can be over and we can get a lock on it. Obviously, unless someone has quads, that would suck. But the dealer's got other plans. The 2 of hearts on the turn. And even worse, the player to my right now just leads out for $125. This just makes no sense. It does not seem like a bluff. It does seem like he just hit the flush. And honestly, I wanted to fold here, but then I thought to myself, come on, that is just way too nitty to just fold here when the flush comes in. Plus, you always could hit a full house on the river and absolutely cooler him if he does have the ace-high flush. So I decide to flick in the call, and I am happy to see that both of the other players fold. So I'm looking for the board to pair on the river, and things go from worse to even worse as the 4th heart comes out there, and now we're beating absolutely nothing. Even if my opponent was just bluffing with the 3 of hearts in his hand, he got there and he is now beating me. I am happy to see, though, he checks, I instantly check back, and he shows the ace of hearts, the bare ace of hearts, so he was turning that into a bluff and got there on the river. After a great first hand, things are not going too good, and hopefully we can turn it around and get back to our winning ways. For this next hand here, we look down at ace-jack offsuit and decide to raise it up to $20 and pick up 2 callers. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, looking for a good one, and I think this is as good as it gets. Jack 4-4. The big blind decides to check, and I debate checking back, but I decide to c-bet for $20, super small, and now the player to my left decides to jam about $100. It doesn't really make much sense. It's a rainbow board. The other player folds, but I'm not going anywhere. I make the call. The board runs out and he says, I've got a jack, so that means we're going to win because we have the best kicker.
I have ace jack. Oh, you do?
So I show him the ace jack and we take this one down, and it's pretty nice when poker's this easy, huh? Unfortunately, he didn't have more money, as it seems we might have been able to suck out some more value, but we're on to the next hand. Oh yeah, this next hand is a fun one as we look down at 6-4 suited under the gun. Oh yeah, that's right, I raise it up to $15 and pick up just 2 callers. Obviously super wide, but I feel pretty comfortable at this table, and I don't always play standard GTO. I always want to go outside the box and do some fun things, especially for content. And what do you know, we flop a flush draw on a board that's also just better for me as the under the gun pre-flop raiser, so I decide to continue here for $25, and as you see, my hand goes over to fold the cards because I thought everyone folded, but the player in the cutoff was just thinking for a super long time and then decided to call, so I put my hands back in position. Head to a turn, looking to hit a flush. We don't, but we pick up a super interesting card as now we have an open-ended straight draw as well. This is a super disguised board. If we hit the straight, my opponent will never see it coming from under the gun position. So I want to keep betting, keep applying the pressure. I bet out for $55, and now my opponent makes the call once again. So looking to hit the river, and we don't, but it's actually a pretty good card. Besides hitting our straight, besides hitting our flush, this is probably the best card in the deck to come out. I should have tons of aces here. I could definitely have 2 pair as ace-jack. I could have just been barreling with ace-king and now I got there. I could have pocket aces myself. We would have definitely heard from him on the turn if he had a good hand, so I unload the clip. I bet out for $145. My opponent also excessively tanked on both streets, and you could tell it's not one of those players who's thinking about whether he should raise or just the situation. He did not look like a very good player at all, so I love putting the pressure on here, and I don't have to stress for too long because he pretty quickly releases. I love the triple barrel here. Let me know what you guys think down below. For the next hand, we look down at pocket aces, and we are so excited because this table has been action. We've been waiting for this. It was the same opponent from the last hand who made the call, and he's been splashy, and obviously, as shown in the last hand, he called 2 streets. So looking to get some value here, we c-bet this flop super small to $20, and unfortunately, he makes the fold. It's very painful, but let's head to the next hand. Some pretty crazy action ensues. So for this next hand, we look down at Queen 10 suited, one of my favorite hands, and clubs is honestly one of my favorite suits. Under the gun makes it $25. I put in the call for $25, and now a player in late position decides to 3-bet to $80. I was actually going to call this $80, but it gets back to this under the gun player who now makes it $225. So obviously I am not calling with action, especially behind. I make the fold, and now the late position player decides to go all in for about $800. They had about similar stacks, and it gets back to under the gun who thinks, and things. He looks like he's in agony, and after a while he decides to put in the call. So I pick up my phone to see the flop. We flop a queen, so I'm like, oh, thank goodness that this happened, or I'd be in crazy situations. And boom, the turn is a queen. So now I'm like, oh man, if they didn't do this, I would have sucked out on aces and kings, and I would have won a massive pot and maybe had yet another triple up. Or so I thought. The other player had kings, but it turned out he had ace king, so wow, he called off for ace king. And after this, I was a little annoyed and just very hungry, so I took a break to grab a burger, which, by the way, was extremely delicious. The food court is right under the poker room here at Borgata, which is super convenient. But after fueling up, we come back to play on a different table for a couple more hands to end the session, so we have a better view. Let's get right back into the swing of things. For this hand, we look down at ace-8 of diamonds. We call a raise to $15, and oh my goodness, would you look at that? We flopped the nut flush. What a warm welcome back to the table after fueling up with a delicious burger. Can this day get any better? Spoiler alert, it can, because watch what happens in this hand. Checks to the initial raiser, who bets out for $35. We obviously could put in a raise here to try to just signify us holding the single ace of diamonds, because that's exactly what I would do with that hand. But I just put in the call, and another player makes the call as well. So our plan is working out as we suck in the other player, heading to a turn, looking to not see another diamond, don't pair the board, and that's exactly what I ordered. A beautiful turn. It checks to the initial raiser, who continues, but now only for $40, which is really weird, and I'm not really sure what to interpret out of this sizing, because a super small sizing could mean he has a really strong hand, or it could mean he has a super weak hand. Say he's just got king high with the king of diamonds and he's just trying to bluff with it. So I could raise here, but I decided to flat call yet again, trying to bring in the other player, who this time folds. So it's unfortunate that we're going heads up to a river. And yet again, just like the turn, I'm asking for no diamond, no board pair, and unfortunately, this time the board pairs, it's nothing that I'm worried about. I'm just more worried about it losing action. Say my opponent has a weaker flush and he bets and now I raise, he could definitely get away from that. And that's what happens. My opponent does bet out here for yet another small sizing. Not sure what to interpret out of this, but definitely going to put in a raise. I raise it up to $200, and after a little bit of thinking, my opponent makes the call. I show him the nuts and he says, oh, that's so gross. So I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened here? He shows the king high flush. Are you kidding me? We should have gotten his entire stack. We should have doubled up our very first hand yet again, just like the start of this session. But his weird sizing and the board pairing on the river just completely effed me. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, and I am kicking myself for not raising the flop, not raising the turn. But I think if my opponent just had top pair, we would have gotten paid the same way, just like we did here. So, I don't know, it's just super hard, and that's one of the hardest things in poker, to not kick yourself after hands like these, because I think I did actually play it very well, but whatever, just have to try to be grateful, happy to come back and win about $400 right away on the first hand sitting down. Let's try to continue and keep on winning. We look down at the beautiful pocket aces. These bad boys just don't get old, let me tell ya. We raise it up to $20 and get 2 callers in the button and the small blind. So we're going off 3 ways to a flop, which is yet again a beautiful board. We've got an overpair. Obviously, we're going to have an overpair to any board. And the nut flush draw. So I decided to c-bet for $20 and only get 1 call. We turn what was just not needed. It is now overkill, as we now have the nut flush. Small blind checks, and now I decide to check back. I think this is a mistake. I think I can bet here. You know, people are probably going to think, oh, there's no way he would bet if he just turned the nut flush. But I don't know. I decided to just check. The river does not pair the board, so we've still got the best hand. He checks, and now I want to go massive to just make it seem like I've only got the ace of hearts or nothing. Maybe he'll hero call me with just a weaker heart. But he folds, we take it down. We wound up winning $1,400 over roughly 5 hours of play. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.